I'm Christian. I'm back on another installment of our Launchpad series. I'm really stoked to be here chatting with Sippy today. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Actually, if I'm honest, I'm recovering from being sick, so the
Oh no.
energy is low, but we're getting there. We're
Can
getting
you
there.
can you tell us like a little bit about you? Just a short background bio.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Sydney, Australia. Um, I started, I guess I started like DJing and messing around with music probably about 9 years ago now. Um, Studied at Icon Collective online from Australia. Kind of dipped my toes in other like back end things when I was over in Australia. Like I was running these DJ schools and production schools and things like that. And then I first came over to the US. I mean, there were a few things in between, but like kind of officially came over June 2021. And yeah, been over here DJing, producing, touring ever since. So
Well,
yeah.
that's good. We're glad to have you here.
I'm not sure if that was a good bio.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's a good segue too, because I'm sure you noticed when I was messaging you the other day, you and I have had a conversation before.
Yes.
And so this is a cool like full circle moment for me because you convinced me to apply to Icon Collective and come out
Did
here.
I?
And now I have this job. And so like without you, I don't even think we would be having this conversation, which is
Wow,
kind
that's
of interesting.
awesome. That's a good plug for Icon. Like, or like the, I don't know. I'm not like, I don't even work there, but
They
I
should
don't
send
know.
you
People,
a
yeah,
residual check
people,
or something.
yeah, exactly. People, I don't know. People like tend to ask, like, I don't know. It's like people ask me my opinion on like certain things that I've done or my experience, and I'm always just going to be honest with how the experience was for me. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's, right for that person, or I'm never really trying to like convince someone that they should. It's just like usually it's like this is my experience and this is what it did for me, and you know, let those people take what they want from it. But that's really cool to see you now like full circle. You've gone through it and you're now like working in music as well. So that's pretty that's pretty awesome.
Thank you. So thanks for that.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
A
Like,
guidance in my life, apparently.
yeah, that's awesome. Like, it's cool to see, yeah, like people like you and other people, sort of now years on from that because, yeah, we spoke like, I don't know, 2018 or something. So it was like quite a while ago. And now seeing you like on the other end is like, I don't know, very awesome to see.
Well, thank you. So I was supposed to catch up with you at Hard Summer, before we rescheduled the interview,
Yes.
and you had just had, I think it's Get Wompy came out,
Hmm.
and then we saw your set there, and I've seen you two or three times, I think, and that was my favorite set I've seen you play.
Really?
But now you have like three or four huge shows that you've played since then. How are you feeling
Yeah.
like on this big tour, a lot of openings, big festivals?
Yeah. I mean, this year has been, and especially the last few months have been like pretty big for me. Obviously, you kind of go into it and I try to prepare for almost everything almost the same, like there's no, it's not that I necessarily put more focus on certain things than others, although, obviously naturally some shows are bigger or, require a little bit more prep or energy than others. But this year, like especially around festival season was very big for me. And obviously you always want that, but I think I'm not sure I was quite expecting what kind of came out of it. It was a really awesome year for me to see my growth and like both as an artist and on that side of it, and also like to see my fan base grow. I saw a lot of people that have been there from the start from years ago, which is like so incredible because it feels like we're sharing that journey together. And it's really cool to have people who have been there and are like seeing the whole process from start to finish. And then it's also really cool to see them, you know, amongst now a sea of so many more people that along the way have connected with my music or connected with me and like coming along for these sets. I think like a lot of these festival sets too, you know, it is nerve-wracking when you're playing earlier in the day, because you're not sure if anyone's gonna, you know, rock up, and seeing like seeing myself on some of these earlier time slots in some of the festivals and seeing that stage pack out for it is really incredible for me, because you know they're not just walking past and seeing it, like they're coming for a reason, which is really awesome. And yeah, it's honestly been a big few months, a big few festivals, and I think even since Hard Summer, like I did a whole, like I really enjoyed that set. It was a really fun one for me. I put in like a lot of effort to completely change it for then. And even since then, like my last, I think 2 or 3 sets, I've completely changed again. So it's been fun to sort of switch it up a little bit, and you know, really put some cool, new, interesting things in my set. There's definitely a lot of unreleased music in there now. I don't quite realize it as I'm building the set. And then when I look at the set at the end and, you know, people ask me like, what's this song? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, shit, like there's actually a lot of like unreleased music that some of it I will release and some of it will probably just stay in the sets or, you know, disappear and stay in my like private little stash. But yeah.
No, and that's interesting you say that, because both on like going to a festival as a fan, like I bought the tickets, I'm there. Everybody that I talk to is like, oh, I can't wait to see Sippy. She's playing. But then even on the industry side, if I'm working an event or, you know, green room or like whatever, everyone is always still talking about you. And they're like, her energy's awesome. Like you have to catch her. She's at like 2:30 p.m. But like
Yeah.
don't miss that set. And so I think
Yeah.
you're one of the first artists that I've heard that from, like on both sides. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of time there's usually like a little cult around an artist, like in certain
Yeah.
subsections, but it seems like
Hmm.
across the board, everyone agrees that like you're number one right now. So
That's really awesome to hear. And like I sometimes struggle to like receive compliments, I guess. But yeah, I honestly like thank you for saying that. I think you know, my sort of style of like, I don't know if I call it like, you know, I guess it's branding. It's a, you know, not necessarily the outward branding, but like who I am as a person and like who I am is a lot easier to kind of, it's harder to like put it out in a big way, but it's easier for people to see when they either like meet me, see my sets, or like are kind of around me in person. And I think now over a couple of years, you know, I've been getting in front of people and people are slowly starting to see that. And you know, I'm managing to like translate that across to quite a few people. And at the end of the day, like the way that I am is I am who I am, and I don't treat people differently, whether they're in the industry or a fan or they work at a venue. Or to me, I'm the same across all instances. I just am who I am, and that sort of stuff doesn't really like change how I interact with people. And so it is really cool now to see as you know I'm growing and developing, you know, seeing that it does translate across both sides, you know, whether it's people who are in the industry or, you know, fans or festival goers. Because at the end of the day, like that's what it is for me. And like bringing other people joy and enjoyment and good energy is like what I live for and what I love, whether it's 10 people or 10,000 people, whether it's industry people or fans, like that's, you know, really what I aim to do. So, and what I guess what brings me joy. So yeah, it's kind of I'm very happy to hear that that's how it feels.
yeah, no, absolutely. And we were just having a team meeting, and everyone was saying like what a genuine person you are when they've met you before. And I
Yeah.
think that's like a good point that you brought up, is like just treating everybody the same and being genuine and being kind, especially when, I mean, in the world we're in today, obviously, but the music industry as well. Like that'll get you so much further with everybody, industry or not. just
Yeah.
just being a nice person, and like it's good to hear that like you're out there doing that and fighting the good fight.
Yeah. I mean, look, in some ways it also can be longer, and I understand that people can get their way by being a bully and being a, am I allowed to swear?
Oh, oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. Because I always am like, I'm just trying to filter so much, but it's like it gets to a point where I'm like, I can't. Um, yeah, like I don't know, like people can get places by being a bully and being a fucking asshole, but at the end of the day, like, how long is that going to last? There's obviously that kind of logic to it. For me, it just doesn't come naturally to be that way because I I don't feel good with myself by being like that. Which, obviously works. And yeah, it might take a little bit longer because you're not being a bully, you're not strong arming people into giving you opportunities, you're not being a dickhead or an asshole. But like this is, long term, like careers. I want a long, successful, happy career where I am enjoying myself and everyone around me is happy and enjoying them like their selves as well. And I don't believe that you can create that with that sort of energy. At the end of the day, like I would rather take a little bit more time to develop and build in a way that's like sustainable and kind of keeps people around happy and empowered.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely like a great way to look at it, and to approach just life in general. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's not, honestly, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth, I, it doesn't matter how much you want to succeed. I don't think it's worth like being horrible to other people. Like, it sounds like common sense and it sounds so silly when you put it that way, but like, I'm, I guess it just depends what you're in this industry for. If you're in it at all costs, then sure, like, you can do all those things because at the end of the day, like, that's what you want more than anything else. I obviously want this. I work so hard every day to, like succeed and be successful in music, but that doesn't come at the cost of other people. And that's it. I would rather throw it all away if it meant that I'm not like hurting or being horrible to other people. And it's not even what other people perceive, like whether they perceive I'm being a certain way. It's like I know at the end of the day whether I can sleep at night with the way that I'm acting with other people.
yeah, no, absolutely, and that kind of leads to one of the questions I have here too. Um, and it's a little later down, but if you were like could talk to your 16-year-old self, like, do you think they would be proud of you? Or like, what advice would you give yourself? Or even maybe just a younger fan of yours? Like, what would you
I
try to
mean, I
lead
think
them
my
to?
16-year-old self would be so confused. Like, I don't think that he would have any idea of like this is where I would be and what I would be doing. But like I don't know. It's definitely a personal thing because it depends like where you were or where you are now, I guess. I think it's funny because I think my 16-year-old self would tell myself now like to go easy on myself and to be proud of myself because I think once you reach a certain level, you're always pushing for the next. But 16-year-old me would have seen me and been like, holy shit, I can't believe that like that's what you're doing and that's what you do. And, they would be really proud of me. So sometimes I feel like it might be a look from the other way to say from my 16-year-old self to me, like, just stop and take a minute and be like, see what you've achieved and be proud of that. But in saying that, something I would probably say to my 16-year-old self is like, be patient and enjoy the journey because it's going to be wild with so many ups and downs. There's going to be so many things that happen that you think are the biggest moment in your life, or, like something that's completely crazy or things that really hurt. And, a few years down the track, you won't even think of them or remember them. So, yeah, probably one of them would definitely be patient, and the second one would probably be, and this is for me that age, or anyone else at that age, is just like look at the bigger picture. Realize that it is a long life, and there is like, have a bigger picture in mind instead of looking at the next thing or tomorrow or next week. Understand that, there is, if it depends if you're building a career or if you're just like living life, but still put things in perspective and understand that, there is a bigger picture, and everything that might be happening right now, or something that seems like the most important, biggest thing that's happening right now, in the big scheme of life, may not be quite as big as it feels right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely great advice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even now I feel myself like in the rat race, like, shit,
Yeah.
I got stuff to do tomorrow. Like, I gotta do this and this and this. And it's like, well, like, that's important, but you gotta slow down sometimes and think about, like
Yeah.
you said, the bigger picture and where things are going, because we get so caught up in like the chores we have to do today, and like, oh, I have to, for you, like, you're like, I got a show next week, I have to travel, and so you don't want to miss life while you think you're living it.
Exactly. It's pretty crazy, because like when I first went off and started touring, or maybe not first, but like a little while into it, when I went off and started touring, touring life is pretty intense. You go from, being at home all the time, uh, and essentially just working at your computer trying to make things sort of get off the ground, to a different city, 4 nights a week. But you're only spending a few hours conscious and awake in those cities to be able to like be a part of it, and enjoy it. And some of that time needs to be spent, working on sets, working on music, doing sound checks, like posting on social media, doing whatever else it is. And you get to this point where you're like, wow, I'm off in the world seeing so many things, yet I don't feel like I'm even here for it, because it's just like, there's so many things moving around and happening and going. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of artists. It's not like a 9 to 5 or a job where you have a specific checklist that you have to check off. At the end of the day, we can be working 24/7, and a lot of us do work a lot of hours, even though it may not look like we are. And so it can be hard for people to sort of put things in perspective and understand the bigger picture. And, you can really zone into what you're doing, the project that you have due, where you want to build to, where you want to get to, and not really look at the long term and the bigger picture. And if you have the ability to understand how to focus what you need to do now, whilst also keeping in mind the bigger picture, I think, that's a good place to be sort of sitting in. Not even just for artists, just for anyone in general, understanding like the bigger picture, and also like focusing on what needs to be done now without over fixating on that, I guess.
Yeah. And like, speaking of touring as well, you're on the road all the time, probably, like when you're touring, like you said, like 4 nights a week, but you're also away from Australia now. And so like,
Yeah.
what's something you miss, like when you're on the tour? Do you miss maybe from your home here in LA, or your home in Australia? And like, what do you love most about the places that you get to visit?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough one. Like now that I've been in LA for a little longer, missing the home I have in LA is becoming more and more of a thing. I'm a massive homebody, so it's like ironic, because I spend like most of my time not at home. So when I do come home, I like don't move very far from my house or my local areas, just to like reset and get into that sort of calm home sort of space. I miss Australia every day, and it's so tough. I'm really fortunate, where I do get to visit a lot. To be honest, I prioritize it because I know how good it is for me and both my physical and mental health. I love going back to Australia as often I can. The thing that I miss the most about it, I mean, I love my country. I love Australia. It's super beautiful, super peaceful. I absolutely love it, and I'm so grateful that I grew up there. But the thing I miss the most is just being constantly surrounded by my friends and family. None of them have anything to do with music. They're all, whatever they are, teachers and physios, and they all accountants. They all have their own lives that are completely unrelated to anything in this music world. But just being surrounded by um, people who constantly encourage you, who constantly look after you, tell you that you're doing okay, and keep you in check when you're not looking after you enough, or if you're over fixating on something that's in the big scheme of things not important. And just that feeling of having that safety net right there by your side no matter what happens. I miss that on a day-to-day basis, and I don't think I understood until I came here how much they inspire me. So having that, look, it's not like they're not there, but it is a bit of a challenge, being able to just call them whenever I need, or talk to them, or even, just physically sitting on the couch and having a chat with them. It may seem like something small, but it's something that used to be a part of my, weekly routine, that now isn't. So I very much miss that. I very much miss them. I miss the culture, and I miss like that inspiration I get from them. Something that's really incredible about being over here and touring is like, it's funny. I think most people, when they ask me about touring, usually I get asked about the feeling of being on stage in front of all of these people. Obviously, it's an incredible feeling, and night after night, it's different depending where you're playing and the circumstances around it. But to me, like the biggest moments that I have are not necessarily on stage. It's usually when I'm at a random local bar in a city that I've never been to before, and I'm really just experiencing that city in its, true form. Um, I love those moments, and I live for those moments. If it's a random conversation I have with someone sitting at the bar, or if it's a, maybe a local who's coming to the show who says, I want to show you around, and they take me to their favorite place. Like I absolutely live for that, because that's the way I really get to see the true essence of these different cities, which is an experience that a tourist may not necessarily get to have, especially in some of these cities that I'm like, I would never have visited here. Like I played a show in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I was like, no one would ever have told me to come and visit here, because I just wouldn't know it. Like it's not common knowledge from someone who lives on the other side of the world. But, having these incredible experience with local people is like really the part where I'm like, this is insane that I get to go out and see this and experience this. Like I'll have these moments where I'm walking down the street in a random city and just go like, isn't this wild? I had a moment a few months back in Denver. I was about to play Red Rocks with Mersive. The night before, I had done like a music production workshop. And we had over 100 people show up for this workshop. I went on and played Red Rocks. It's obviously a huge venue, and I was walking down the street the day after the workshop, just before Red Rocks. I went to grab like a boba or something, and I was walking back on the street, and I just started out of nowhere, just started laughing, and I was like, "This is insane! I'm literally walking down the streets of Denver, Colorado. I'm from the other side of the world. I started this by just opening up my laptop and you know mucking around and making music, and now I'm on the other side of the world, helping teach other people my process and how I do it, for them to kind of learn and create their own process. And people are genuinely interested in hearing my process and how I got here. And it's those little moments, I think, that really make me not only like grateful for what I do, but I just like see it and I'm like, wow, I get to see so much of this country in such a different way than so many than I ever would have imagined being able to do it if I wasn't doing this as a career. So yeah, it's a pretty like incredible experience all in all.
Oh, that's good to hear because I kind of agree with you. Like just even like going on like a road trip with friends and like stopping in some random little town, you're
Yes.
like this place like it's like a liminal space. You're like this doesn't exist. This isn't a real place.
Yeah.
What's like I
Yeah.
would have never like it's not even like on the map unless you zoom
Yeah.
like all the way in on Google Maps and you're like this town was
Yeah.
the coolest place I've ever been. And I
Yes.
think places like that
100%.
definitely. Do
Yeah.
you have like a favorite city that you've been to that you've got to play at
There's
or
a
even
few.
just
There's
travel?
one. Yeah, there's one that's become almost like not even a joke. It's just the people. I've mentioned it now a few times, and the people who are from there totally know it, and they know I'm going to say it every time because it was just one of those places that just I knew nothing about, and just I got there and was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, I can't believe this is happening." So one of the ones that really caught me off guard was Bozeman, Montana. It's like, what business do I have like being in Bozeman, Montana from Sydney, Australia? I mean, it's funny because there actually are a lot of Aussies that know about Montana. And look, this is keeping in mind, like, obviously, I understand, like, I love playing in Denver. Obviously, it's a huge, like, a bass capital. I've had so many memories there, but it's one of those ones I already kind of knew about. Like I'd heard things. I sort of knew how it is. Portland, I love visiting. I'd heard things. I already, like I kind of had a bit of back end information before I went. So I kind of had expectations that it was going to be good, and it was. But Bozeman, Montana, knew nothing. I was going to play. It was like one of my first solo headline shows, and I was headlining there, and I was like, I've never even heard of Bozeman. No one's going to come. It's going to be it's the middle of winter. Like, what the fuck is going on? And I got to the coolest venue I've ever seen. It's like an old school bar with like, I walked in at like 2 p.m. and there's like, you know, seven old white dudes who are like 65 plus sitting there drinking, no music or anything, not even talking to each other, just staring at the wall, sitting there drinking. And I was like, this is like the amount of character that was in this place that I walked into was just like, what is going on? They had like old manual slot machines. They had like all these old like beer cans and license plates stuck up on the wall. It was just like something I've never seen. Anyway, I was like, who knows how this is going to go? And of course, I get in there late at night. It's at capacity. It's like one of the rowdiest shows I've ever played, and it was bucketing down with snow outside, which, as you can imagine, as an Aussie, I'm just like geeking, like just like this is incredible. So that's definitely one of the places that I really, I will always remember, and was like a pretty incredible moment for me. Um, and there's another one in New York State, Rochester, New York. Again, this is when all of these like crazy experiences happen, but uh I think it was just the city that caught me off guard. I was staying in a hotel, and there was a bar nearby. I hadn't eaten, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna get something to eat and have a drink. It was Halloween themed, so I'm like, all right, this is gonna be interesting. Walked in, there was like a tarot reader. There was it was kind of Halloween themed. I had a cocktail which was in like a teacup with like a floating ping pong ball that was painted as an eyeball, and I was like, all right, like let's go, like whatever. Anyway, I'm sitting there and they have like a blues band playing. So, about four of them, older guys, just like amazing. Like I loved it. They were playing incredibly. And I'm sitting there, next minute a drag queen comes up and sits next to me. I'm like, okay, like right on. This, definitely an eclectic group in here in terms of like, you know, like drag queen mixed with 70-year-old blues players mixed with like 22-year-olds having a couple of drinks. Like I was just like, this is a mixed bag of so many people that I never thought I would see kind of in the same room in a small, town or small city sort of thing. Not knowing anything about the area. And then next thing I know, you know, this band is still playing, and they say, "Look, we've got one more song." But after our set is done, everyone go over next door. We've got, you know, we've got some incredibly talented artists that are performing next door, blah, blah. And then after they finish, they come up and they're, you know, standing around with now 3 drag queens, all having a drink, you know, these old blues players and the drag queens. And I was like, this is so interesting. Turns out they had a drag show next door, you know, 5 minutes after the blues band finished. And I just like being in that experience, like again, like a city I would never really visit. Um, it was something that made me go like, I'm going to remember this like place for so long, because it was an experience where I could just see like what the local, you know, people were doing that random night on a Thursday when I was playing, you know, like, so I think those particular instances are ones that I remember. The Bozeman show for sure, and I have gone on to play Bozeman since then, and it only got better and better. But yeah, I think they were some of the most memorable. The best places, like the places I enjoy playing, were obviously those, but Denver every time is incredible. I love it. Portland is also super fun. You know, there's festivals and events that are in cities like obviously Lost Lands is always incredible, and um, you know, up at the Gorge is an incredible venue to play as well. There's things trickled all throughout the country that are just so special in their own way, and I'm just really grateful that I get to experience them all.
I'm so glad that you brought up Bozeman, because I'm actually from Montana,
Shut
and
up.
so I think it's cool to hear anyone
Mhm.
talk anything about Montana, because there's fucking no people there at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know Bozeman super well, and I love that you got
Yeah.
to go see it because it's beautiful. But just
It's
I
so
thinking
beautiful.
of a dubstep show happening in the middle of winter in Bozeman is like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous, and I love it.
It was ridiculous. Like the whole time I was like, this is insane, but I love it. Like people are standing up on couches, like guys are taking their shirt off and like, you know, absolutely just like head banging and having the best time. And I was like, this is wild, like incredible. Love it.
So, kind of on that same topic, then, how is touring in the US different than touring in Australia? Like, how are the scenes different? Does the business still work the same? Like, what's the vibe there?
It's very different. Australia is like not the same size as America, but it's quite big. It's actually quite close to the size of America, but we have way less people. You know, around, and this is not going to be right. Someone can Google it, but you know, around 28 million in the whole of Australia. Which population wise compared to the States is crazy. So it just means we don't have, no matter what we do, we don't have as big of a scene because there's just not as many people around. In saying that, our scene is very dedicated. The bass music scene is super dedicated. They love it. They're very open-minded, which is really cool. You'll see people who are into one genre standing next to people who are into another, and they just like they love it and they're all for it. You know, they're all about sort of experiencing together. And when it comes to making sets for that kind of environment too, um, you know, the fan base over there aren't necessarily interested in hearing. I mean, they are interested in hearing this, but like they don't need to hear, I guess, like the top bangers. They appreciate and love good music, and they will just react to what they hear, which is really fun as a DJ because it means you can kind of like, I don't know, really show them some stuff that you think is cool and see their genuine reaction to it. They're very vocal. They, you know, they scream and sing and dance and move, like they move the whole time, which is really fun. So the energy in those sets is really awesome. But I think like in America, DJs are definitely on a bit of a different level. Like they're sort of seen a little bit more as rock stars over here than in Australia, which comes with it a completely new and interesting take as an artist. Just to see how people idolize their artists, which you know, there can be some negative connotations to that, but it's also awesome because it makes you feel like what you're doing and producing and putting out there actually makes a difference to people's lives. Um, you know, no matter how big or small. And for some it's bigger than others. So that's really cool to see. And to see the support, the amount that, you know, people in the scene here, you know, the amount that they support their artists, that they love their music and all of that is really awesome. It's something that I just think is so incredible, and I kind of forget about it sometimes. And then every now and then, you know, I'll get messages from people just showing me their support, and it just like it's really touching, and it means a lot when you're sort of sitting here working on it day in and day out. Sometimes you get a bit of tunnel vision and you don't really think about things like that, and someone will kind of send you a message, and it puts things into perspective, which is really cool. The shows in America are just huge. Like, you know, the amount of people, um, the how often they can happen too. Like the fact that you could be on a bus tour and you're playing 4 or 5 nights a week for 6 or months on end is just insane. Like it's really incredible to see. It's incredible to see how big the scene is, and also just like how many nuances there are in it. You know, there's so many fun little tidbits of culture throughout that I'm slowly finding out about and learning that are not really, you know, we don't really have that in Australia, and seeing it and learning about it is just really awesome for me. You know, it's like seeing people's small passions, you know, that are within in this scene is really cool. I find it really interesting. I really love it. Like I don't have a problem if someone's passions are not mine or not someone else's, but just hearing about it and hearing them be passionate about it is super interesting to me. Like I don't know, I love seeing people who are passionate. Um so that's a really fun thing in the scene over here. Just people's passion and commitment and how much they support the artists that they love is super, super endearing.
Awesome. So I want to shift kind of towards your music side of things now.
Hmm.
You just had a song come out called Silky.
Yes.
Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
How
Thank you.
how do you feel with that coming out? How did the song come about?
Look, honestly, I can never pick how things are going to be, how songs are going to be perceived and which ones people are going to like. And or not like, but connect with more. And sometimes the ones that I pick that I think people are going to connect with are not necessarily, you know, what they go for. And sometimes the ones that I think they're not going to connect with, the ones they connect with the most. So, I don't know. This one, people like it seemed to be picked up pretty quick by everyone. Everyone's really like loving it. I've been playing it in my sets for quite a long time now. Um, Essentially, I think the way it came, like I can't really remember because it's a while ago. Milky and I wrote this like quite a while ago. I mean, not that long ago, but a while ago. And you know, he's a producer out of New Zealand, absolute legend. I've met him. Um, I met him back when I was like one of the earlier times that I toured New Zealand, and you know, we see each other when like not every time I'm over there, but like usually when I'm over there, I get a chance to like see him or catch up with him. And you know, he's always sending me music that's just awesome. That I end up putting in my sets and things like that. And then, you know, one time he was sending me a whole heap of music to have in my sets. And I'm like, dude, like send me something, let's or like I can send you something, but like let's work on a track together. You know, so he sent me over an idea and we just kind of went back and forth on it. It was super quick. It just kind of happened really naturally. We just worked really well together. Our sounds just kind of blended really well, and the idea of the song kind of happened really quick. And then we kind of just like had it for a while, and I was playing it like in shows, and then, you know, eventually we showed it to Monster Cat, and that was one that they really loved and picked up on. So you know, I'm happy that they loved it and they picked up on it as well. I did have a point where I was kind of like looking at changing vocals and adding other vocals in it and all that sort of stuff, but it just didn't feel right. It felt, you know, what we had done in the heat of the moment at the beginning was kind of what felt right for the song. So I'm kind of glad that we did keep it that way. And people seem to love it, whether it's live or they're, you know, listening, you know, through Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or whatever. So yeah, it's going really well. It's been really well received. You know, which is always awesome to hear, and awesome to see. So yeah, and it's really good. Like I know Milky has always wanted to release on Monster Cat, so I'm really, you know, happy for him that this was an opportunity for him to sort of make his Monster Cat debut. And you know, there was a lot of things over the process that, you know, he's sent me so much music over the years that I've really loved and I've played in my sets and supported, but it was really cool to be able to do a release with him and just sort of like um do whatever I could through that process to kind of um you know, help with the release and get things across the line that would have been harder to do, you know, on our own or on his own. So it was really sick. I think he's such an incredible person. I have so much respect for him, and I'm glad that people are, you know, starting to hear more and more about him because he's just an incredible producer and such a nice person. So yeah, this release has been really well received, and yeah, I'm kind of glad to see it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear it. I really like that one, honestly. I feel like there's something about it that I don't know if endearing is the right word, but that's like you listen to it and you're like, this is just a good vibe song. Like I can dance to
Yeah,
it on the dance floor at a club or like play it in the car
yeah,
or just like doing
yeah,
my dishes, just like throw it on. I'm like, and it's
yeah,
it's good for any sort of act that you're up to. Um, and
yeah,
I like the
yeah.
name
It's
too. It's just a
definitely.
blend of
Thank you.
your two
Yeah, I
names.
know. We just we just we tried to come up with things and it just like it all sounded contrived and silly and we were like, well fuck, if we're gonna go silly, let's just fucking mash it together and turn it into that. So, you know, it's a simple song and we both love it. So it's really fun to be able to try and just put those things out in the world and not overthink it too much and see it be so well received.
Well, and just having fun in general, like that's what this is all about.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how did you get into music originally? Was this always your plan, or like what originally inspired you to
Honestly, like so I like played instruments and kind of wrote my own music in high school. Well, in primary school as well. I was playing piano from a young age, like probably 7 or 8 or something. And I was always just like messing around, making little songs and things like that. And as I came up to finish school, you know, I was writing songs in bands and for orchestras and all this, but you know, I was in a very competitive music class, not competitive. We just had some very talented people in my music class. And so, you know, I wasn't the top in my music class. And I sort of assumed, well, if I'm not the best, then I'm probably not going to be able to make a career in this. I didn't know or understand the world of producing. It came from more of a classical or kind of pop background. So I just assumed it would be something I would always do for fun, but not something I could make a career out of. And then went and studied uni in completely different applied sciences and went kind of exercise and sports science route and strength and conditioning sort of vibe. And then I just missed music and wanted to kind of get back into doing it just for fun. So I started DJing and learning to produce through friends and YouTube and all of that. And, you know, just for my own personal enjoyment. And it just slowly, over a period of time, snowballed to a point where I could, you know, grow it into being my career and my full time thing. So, yeah, it really came from, it didn't come from a place where I was trying to necessarily make it a career. It came from a place of I love music and I just want to write it and enjoy it and kind of snowballed from there.
Is that still kind of the way you approach making a song, or like what inspires you now that you've made this a career?
I think that's where the best songs come from. Because quite often we are, you know, artists are put under pressure to um produce, make more songs, create more content. And I can sit down and produce a track on any day, but the best songs definitely come from a place that is more inspired, and usually that comes from times when I'm producing where I'm not I don't necessarily have a goal in mind. I'm just trying to write for the sake of writing, and that's usually when the best music comes out. And I'm starting to realize it more and more. So it means that I'm starting to change my process to help me be in that mindset more, instead of being in a mindset of I have to write a track, I have to finish tracks, I, you know, need to produce this thing, or it needs to be like this, or it needs to be like that. Um, don't get me wrong, sometimes I do get caught a little bit in the rat race where I'm like, okay, well, I have to produce something, but to be honest, they're not usually the songs that end up seeing the light of day. Normally it's the songs that, I'm on a flight somewhere and I've got a few spare hours and I'm like, like I might just start something new and see what comes of it. And it ends up being a song that I end up releasing. Um, so that's kind of, I guess the process has changed. Like it does change year, and as I progress and as I get better and as I understand myself and what inspires me more and more. But yeah, it's usually the ones coming from the inspired place that seem to be, at least in my opinion, the better tracks.
Yeah. No, and I think you can hear that in your music as well. Like you can hear the love that you put into it, and like that you actually enjoy making it. Like there's that
Yeah.
sense of energy in the tracks that, so you just don't get, like you said, on tracks that you feel like it's a chore, it's a job to do. It's like it
Yeah.
kind of removes the aspect of passion from the music.
Yeah. And I think like you can definitely, it's kind of an easier way to make sure your music is always original, because I don't know, say what you will about my music, whether you like it or not. Um, it definitely has its own original sound, and I'm constantly getting better. I'm constantly working on improving my ability. And my songs will continue to get better as I explore that. That's a search that I never want to stop doing. I always want to improve and get better when it comes to my ability. But I feel like sometimes you can hear it with artists when they're really trying hard to kind of either capture the flavor of the moment or stay relevant, or, anything like that, because it sits in this spot that is somewhat generic. And I think you can really hear the difference when an artist is really going off and doing something that makes sense for them, as an artist, because, it does have that element of sounding like its own unique thing. And I know I can definitely hear that in my music. I listen back to it weeks later and I'm like, I don't even remember how I went through that process of creating that and what part of my mind decided to go in that direction. But, you know, I love it. It's something different, and you know, I love that in my process.
Yeah, well, and you alluded to earlier that you started in like a classical training, and your sound is so, I mean, obviously dubstep is a far cry from piano.
Yeah.
And so like how did you make that transition? Because your songs are definitely, they sound like Sippy. And so like
Yeah.
from piano as a little kid to now and making, these crazy aggressive dubstep growls, like where does that journey
Yeah.
start and end?
I mean, it did take a long time. I think my biggest focus when I did go to study at Icon was on sound design, because I just knew nothing about it. I came from a world where the instruments were already made, and yeah, there were a few different ways that you could play it to make it sound different or unique, but at the end of the day, the instruments existed. And I thought this whole concept of, oh, I can actually create an instrument that is so unique sounding. I can create a synth that no one has ever made or heard before. That process was so foreign to me. So I actually spent a lot of time over quite a few years, like really learning and understanding sound design. It's funny because I didn't really hear or understand what made a song like a Sippy song originally. It was just kind of my taste. In the tones, in the processing, my choices of sounds that I end up using. you know, throughout my process. Now I guess I can hear it a little bit more than I probably could, and I'm sure it will continue to develop throughout my career. Um, Honestly, the way that it kind of happened was gradual in that sense, but also I think my experience in music before becoming a producer was almost completely separate. It feels like a completely different life because the hands-on element is very different. You know, there's the melodic side that you're doing, but there's not this whole sound design and processing element when you're just telling a band what to play and how to play it. It's interesting though, because I do think melodically there are some parallels from, you know, back when I was writing music in that context versus now. Um, it's just the kind of melodies that I am drawn to. And, you know, I write music in quite a few other genres for other artists. And I think some people see that and they can hear the parallels, even though it doesn't sound necessarily like a Sippy song, like they can tell that I wrote it. So that's very interesting to like see from that perspective as well.
You think it's like almost a little more freedom? Because that's how I always thought of it. Like I grew up playing guitar and I still love to play, but being in a synth and a DAW, like it feels almost, like I don't have to play the notes that are already tuned on the instrument. So it's almost like the
Yeah. Yeah, it creates like so much possibility, which is obviously an incredible experience. Sometimes it can be daunting and can kind of like throw me into a bit of a spin of choice because I'm like, I could choose to do everything. So then have so many choices that I don't even make a decision. But um it is also like it is definitely um you know, it definitely gives me a lot more options. And I feel, you know, when I get into Ableton, I feel like I can create anything. Whereas, you know, when I had a guitar in my hand and the band standing in front of me, I was like, well, I'm writing a song for a band. These are the instruments that are going to play it. So, you know, it's a little bit different, I guess.
yeah. No, I mean I think it definitely is like it's a trade-off. It's good and bad.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said you mentioned that you have been writing for other people and obviously have a background in some other music. What's a genre of music that you love that you probably like just would never play in a set?
A genre that I love that I wouldn't play in a set. I mean, like I was gonna say I absolutely love house, but I definitely play that in my set. So I can't really, you know, it's obviously selective which house tunes I put in there. I love drum and bass, but again, that's in my sets. Um I write a lot of like R&B and hip hop, and I really love writing it. It's really fun. It's quite broad, like the scope in which I produce in that world. It's something that I would never release as Sippy. It's something that I would never put in my sets necessarily. There are some songs that I've written that do have like that hip hop influence, or like some artists that I have worked with on my own songs that I've also produced and worked for on, you know, their songs as an artist, as a R&B singer or a hip hop artist or whatever. But yeah, that's something that I really love writing and being a part of, that will probably like, you know, never be a part of a Sippy set. But it's super, I find it really, I love those sessions. I find like a lot of joy and inspiration from those sessions.
Yeah, no, and finding inspiration in other sources, I think, as an artist, like that's elevates your art to another level if you're out there doing other
Definitely.
stuff. Which is
Definitely.
also another question I had. I tend to find inspiration out in the real world, like doing things non-music related. Do you have
Yeah.
a hobby outside of music? Like, what do you love to do that's not music related?
Yeah. I have a lot. I have a lot of things, and like sometimes I do get very in work mode. So I kind of, you know, I don't always remember to carve out the time to do some of those things that make me happy. You know, the thing that I went to that was I was looking to be my career, I guess ended up being more of a hobby for me, which is sport, exercise, and health. I play a lot of touch football. It's just a sport that I grew up with that I really loved, and a sport that, you know, had a social comp here that also went into like a more competitive competition that I'm a part of and that I'm actively playing, which is really fun. So I love playing touch. I actually have a big tournament this week or this weekend. We've got nationals, so heading off with LA Royals this weekend to try and take home the championship, which is like something fun to keep me fit and healthy and active and get me out of the studio and, you know, I guess give me perspective and sometimes get me out of my little loop that I might be in for that day. I love snowboarding, skateboarding, just kind of being out and active with things like that. Um, I'm also like very interested. I'm interested in health, but also very interested in psychology and things surrounding mental health as well. So I do a lot of my own like reading and research and things like that. You know, I love reading and love making time for that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, there's like plenty of things on the outside that I love. I do go for walks, I go for runs. I kind of like to get out and take myself away from the studio for even if it's only for, you know, 20 minutes or so, at least it's, you know, kind of getting me out and giving me a bit more of a perspective or even gaining inspiration from the little things that you pick up along the way.
Well, good luck this weekend in your tournament.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, random, but yeah.
So like you've been touching on health a lot. I've noticed, and that's I think a really good thing in an industry that it's so easy to become very unhealthy, whether it's like
Yeah.
sedentary in your studio or you know you're out drinking every weekend at your shows. Do you think that's something that like you would want to portray that as part of the Sippy brand to your fans, or like promote health in this industry, or is there some other message that you like to incorporate into who you are?
Um, I think like I'm not the type to tell. I don't know, it's really hard for me because I'm not the type that wants to tell people how they should live. You know, we all lead such different lives, and some things work for other people and not for some things work for some people and not for others. I prioritize my health, and I love seeing people look after themselves. I think um, there's something that kind of radiates from someone who looks after themselves and takes pride in like themselves. Whether it be completely physical, like I'm not someone who's like you have to be. I'm not 100% in any which direction, no matter what I do. I'm never like you have to 100% be all like this and that's it, and there's no nuance to it, and there's no other way to be. You know, I'm if someone looks after themselves, it doesn't mean they have to be at the gym 7 days a week. If anything, I think that's unhealthy. You know, I definitely like to support and encourage people to look after themselves and be healthy because I know that's going to make them feel good, and I know it's going to make them enjoy life even more. And I would be lying if I said that for people. You know, I want people to feel good. I want people to feel happy. I want people to enjoy their lives. And you know, to have long, healthy lives and to avoid issues where they can. Um, I don't think it's something that I necessarily like push out there too much. It's kind of a hard discussion to have like in big ways on social media. I feel like sometimes it's easier for me to like have conversations with people in person, but again, I'm not someone who kind of pushes it on to people. I love seeing people yeah, who are looking after themselves. You know, I'm also not here to be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that. You know, like we're in an industry where it can go all way one way and all way the other. Like I have so many friends who, you know, in my green room with me who are sober, who don't do any drugs, who don't drink alcohol, completely sober. And then I have other friends who do like to, you know, take drugs and who do like to drink and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not there telling either of them which way they should or shouldn't be. At the end of the day, like I just kind of want people to be happy in themselves. And if they do feel like they want to change the way that they are living, I want them to feel empowered to do so, and to have support in doing that as well. I think the most important thing, no matter what I believe in or what I do myself, is just being a person and creating a community that's non-judgmental, of people and their situations and the way that they're choosing to live their lives. I honestly, like, it's a tough one because I probably would try and distance myself from someone who is living a lifestyle that's hurting both themselves and people around them. But in saying that, you know, I think like nowadays people are so quick to judge and so quick to push, you know, their agenda and their way of being onto other people. And I don't want people to feel that way. I don't want, you know, I think I think two people standing together, one who does drugs and one who's sober, like, why can they not be friends and respect each other? There's no reason for them not to, you know. I think instead of necessarily like pushing something that I'm passionate about in health, you know, I find people along the way who are also passionate about that. And I love having conversations with them and learning more and seeing the ways that things that have worked for them or things that they've learned or the way that they live. And I love having those like conversations with those people as well. I find it really interesting. But I think the thing that is more important to me is building a community and creating a space where people feel safe, they feel not judged, and they feel like they can stand next to someone who lives a completely different life or is completely different to them and still, you know, enjoy each other, have fun with each other, respect each other, and live with each other in like a positive, empowering way. I think that's the most important thing to me. And also I think there is one thing that I think is super important and again very nuanced, but you know, mental health is such a big issue nowadays. It's something that like I've had very personal experiences with in many different shapes and forms. And, you know, I want people in my circle, but also in my fan base to, you know, feel safe and being able to discuss that, and also empowered to kind of takes care of themselves in that area, because that is something that's super important. It's something that sits with you every day. And you know, that's something that I will always want to you know, promote and make people feel comfortable and empowered with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made a really good point about non-judgmentalism and really building like a good community of acceptance, especially
Yeah.
in the world of dance music, the idea of community and acceptance. And that's one of the big pillars that we stand on.
Yeah.
And I think that's also kind of ties into mental health as well, as if you're in a non-judgmental community that supports and protects and wants the best for everyone, then that elevates everyone's mental health as well, knowing that they have a good support system. And I think it's really cool to hear somebody, you know, you're not preaching a message, you're not
Yeah.
judging people and screaming about, you know, your way or the right way or the wrong way. You just want what's best for everyone. And I think that's a really like commendable viewpoint to take.
Definitely. And the thing that's the most exciting to me now is seeing that the community, like my fan base and the community building around me, is very much representative of that. And I love seeing it. Like there's nothing more that I love than seeing the ways that my fans interact with each other on social media, and seeing the way that my fans interact with each other at shows and in crowds. Like I have fans that come to shows and they're coming alone and they end up, you know, making friends with this big bunch of people. And I'm like, it fills me with such joy to see that actually translating into the people that resonate with me and my music, because it just means, you know, it helps create that energy much farther than I can reach myself. You know, like I can only reach and talk to so many people and make them feel safe and comfortable. But seeing that I have a community of people around me that emulate that as well, you know, it means that as people come into that community, they can still feel that way. Which is, yeah, which is really awesome and really important. And you know, like I see, yeah, I feel like it's not about, you know, saying this is right and this is wrong. Everyone is in different or on different paths, and you can't always also be awesome and great all the time. And that's also okay. You know, you can go through periods where you're doing really well and go through periods where you're not. I don't like seeing people use that as an excuse for bad behavior that hurts themselves and others. But you know, I also don't see that people who genuinely are struggling and genuinely need help, I don't see that as a pattern of something that they do. And I notice that when you create a community that's non-judgmental and that are supportive and them and are there for them, you know, that's really the most empowering thing for them, whether it takes, you know, a few days, weeks, months, or years to, you know, shift the period that they're in. You know, it's just really important to have that community around them. And it's just so awesome to see it like really building within my community, seeing how many of like my fans and the people around me are so um like they genuinely care for each other. Because at the end of the day, I find it so crazy whenever I see people at shows who are just so against each other, and I'm like, guys, like we're here together for the same reason. I don't care where you come from or like, you know, what other things are going on outside. Like at the end of the day, we're all here together because we enjoy this one thing. So all of those other things aside, like let's be here and enjoy it and respect each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. And like that's something that, you know, I hope continues to grow. And, you know, if your fans are doing that, then maybe they bring that energy to the other artists' fans that they like too.
Definitely.
And, you know, by the end of
Exactly.
the day, everybody's, you know, hopefully just a little bit more respectful.
Yeah,
So,
exactly right.
I just want to know what's something on your music bucket list that you're maybe have coming down the pipe soon, or like
Yeah.
what's a pinnacle moment for Sippy?
I'm really excited to write and release an album. It's not close, but I'm just very excited for that process. I'm very excited to put that together. I can see now that that moment is coming closer and closer. You know, we're not there yet, but I'm loving seeing my, you know, ability and skill set to grow to a point where I feel I can write an album that I'll be really proud of. I'm not going to rush into it because I do want it to feel right for both me and my fan base, but I'm very excited for that process.
No, that'll be, and I'm sure that's something your fans are looking forward to. And, you know, I'm sure you saying this now, if anybody watches this, then they're probably going to start pushing you on
Yeah.
social media to get started on it.
I definitely have some stuff sitting in the background that I'm like, this is an album track, you know, like sit it over here and like I don't know, I'm definitely have a lot of music that's already ready and prepared to come out. So it's exciting when I'm at that point because now I feel like I have all the time in the world to, well, not all the time in the world to produce, but you know, I don't have an agenda when it comes to producing, which is when the best music I think also comes out. So as I'm writing things, it makes me more inspired and it gives me a little bit more time and energy to think about how it might work as a bigger body of work. I am actually about to release an EP, so I'm excited for that one to come out. It actually changed quite a lot from when it was first signed to how it's sounding now. And I'm really glad that it has developed in that way. So I am excited for that to come out. But yeah, a bucket list thing would definitely be be the album.
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, that's really exciting. And I'm sure, it's going to be great when you finally get there, and it'll feel,
Yeah.
a good moment for you, but also a whole album full of music out for your fans and for the world. It's
Yeah.
like, that's definitely something I think that we probably are looking forward to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very excited for it. So we'll see how it develops.
So is there anything else you want to share, a message to the world, to your fans, before we sign off for the day?
Um, Not particularly. Keep being kind to each other. Thank you so much for supporting me because it really means a lot. I've felt very well supported over the past few months, and I'm really grateful for it. So it doesn't go unappreciated. So thank you very much, and continue to look after each other. Be nice to each other. Life's too short to be a fucking asshole to the person next to you. So let's not be doing that. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and
Thank you
talk and
so
chat with me.
much. No worries. Thank you so much for having me and organizing those questions. And yeah, dope. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And glad to see you a few years on and really in here and getting it done. That's sick.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for, I mean, I know you probably have all sorts of work to do today. So
Yeah.
taking an
Yeah,
hour and a half here I
this
appreciate it.
EP is like it's looming. I just last minute decided, no, I'm changing this whole song. So now I'm like, okay, like now I actually have to like finish the mixing and mastering and not just, kick the can down the road. So, but yeah, it's all good. No stress. Thank you so much for doing it.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good rest of your day.
Awesome. Yeah, you too. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, later.